Hello, good morning and welcome to the brand new edition of the newspaper show. It's the weekend edition. I'm Cheryl D'Souza and I'll take you through the top headlines that's there on the Economic Times as well as the Times of India. But let's get going with the top headlines that's there on the Economic Times for you this morning. And first up, it is the Prime Minister's meeting, with all-party meeting that he held yesterday. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that no intrusion into India, no post has been captured. That is the word coming in from the Prime Minister or in that all-party meeting. Moving on, Centre may ask states to go for local purchases. You have industry that's been told to submit the list of Chinese imports. Reliance Industries is now net debt-free. Promise has been fulfilled is the word coming in from Mukesh Ambani on Reliance Industries. Moving on to the pharma space, you have Glenmark Covid drug gets nod for restricted use. You have decks cleared for LIC's mega IPO. You have government that may allow exports of the PPE suits. You have RBI, they have doubled the withdrawal limit for PMC Bank to 1 lakh rupees. US is keen to restore India's status under GSP. And lastly, Urjit Patel to take charge as NIPFP's Chairman. And those are the top headlines that we are covering on the Economic Times for you this morning. But let's move on and let me get you the top corporate headlines that's there in the paper. And first up, it is China trouble may dent steel demand further. Moving on, you have food deliveries at QSRs back at pre-COVID levels. Used car market gears up to thrill. You have allegations of mismanagement at Tata Realty. And lastly, Facebook buys Mapillary to take on Google Maps. And now let's shift focus to the top 5 headlines that you have on the Times of India this morning. And moving on, it is national tally nears 4 lakh. The toll is shy of 13,000. Home isolation picks up in Mumbai. 34% of COVID beds are empty. Maharashtra sees maximum number of cases. Parts of Borivali, Kandivali may see total shutdown. And India moves jets to China facing forward bases. Alright, that was the roundup of all the headlines that's there, top headlines that's there on the Economic Times as well as the Times of India for you. But let me talk about the top story that's there on the Times of India. Here you go. And on the Economic Times as well. And that is the Prime Minister's meeting, or the all-party meeting that was held yesterday. And I'll read directly off the paper to tell you what the Prime Minister said in that particular meeting. All-party meeting, Modi denies Chinese intrusion, says 20 martyrs thought assaulters. Big lesson. Congress asked for restoration of status quo and leaders of most political parties have backed the government. So that is what the Prime Minister said. No intrusion into India, no post captured. That is the big headline that's coming out of the all-party meet. But what else was discussed at the meeting and what did the Prime Minister say? I'm joined by my colleague Ayushman Kumar from Mirror Now. Good morning, Ayushman. Take us through the highlights of the meeting and what the Prime Minister had to say.
Well, it was a long call for the opposition to the government that all-party meeting should be called and the situation should be discussed as to what is happening on Indo-China border. In that, the West Bengal Chief Minister clearly backed the government and said India stands united in this. But there were several questions raised by the Congress party working president Sonia Gandhi, who wanted to get into the details of as to when the transgression began, what happened in the month of May, and what did the government do in past 1 month? How did the soldiers die? Definitely, the government got backing of the several parties when they said that the entire political draft was standing with the government in order to deal with China. But definitely there was Congress which was singled out because it wanted clear answers on what was happening on Indo-China border. The Prime Minister, while concluding when he gave his remark, he clearly said that there was no intrusion and there was no transgression. Nobody came into our territory, and all our posts are secured. The Prime Minister also said that those who were trying to intrude or were the ones who wanted to come were, in fact, our Jawans were the one who tackled this. But there are several questions now being raised. We have seen Rahul Gandhi tweeting this, that if there was no transgression or intrusion was not there, why were our 20 soldiers killed? And there are several defense experts also raising the question on the complete denial of the government on this issue.
All right, Ayushman, thank you for taking us through those details of that all-important, all-party meet that took place yesterday. The Prime Minister there categorically stating that no intrusion into India and no post captured. But let's move on and let's talk about two stories that's there on the Economic Times front page, and these are the two stories that I'm going to talk about. I'll first talk about this one. That is, the industry has been told to submit list of Chinese imports in a bid to substitute the non-essentials with local goods. Industry has been asked to flag those critical to the operations. The centre has asked industry to prepare a detailed list of all purchases from China and flag those critical to operations so that the government can identify the non-essential imports that can be substituted with local products. This is as per officials, as per sources that have told Economic Times on this latest development. So basically, the charting the plan, the centre has asked the industry bodies to submit the list by Monday. Government to formulate a 3-timeline strategy, that is short, medium and long term, and plan to discourage using Chinese products in short term, import substitution in medium, and developing India as the manufacturing hub in the long term. So this is a centre's plan on how to reduce imports of non-essential goods. But taking a leaf out of that, and there's another story like I mentioned in the Economic Times, and that reads, the centre may ask states to go for local purchases, this in order to block Chinese products. Amendments likely in the procurement contracts. The centre will soon ask states to amend their procurement contracts to include provisions ensuring that local suppliers get preferences and Chinese companies or goods do not gain access. The government, which has all reserved government contracts up to 200 crores for locally manufactured goods, is keen that states also adopt such a policy. So this is another story that's coming out similar to the other one. One is they've asked the industry to prepare the list, a detailed list of all the Chinese goods that are imported so that they can at least stop the non-essential imports and give it local goods more preferences. And centre has asked states also to go in for local purchases. So these are the top two developments that's coming with regards to what's happening across the border as well. But let's shift focus now to a corporate headline, and a big headline that we got yesterday during the market hours, and that was Reliance Industries. They become net debt free. Mukesh Ambani said that he's fulfilled his promise way ahead of the schedule of March 2021 to make the company net debt free. They've already made it a net debt free, all thanks to the Geo Platforms investments. But let's get on board my colleague Ajay to take us through more details on this particular story. Ajay, what's the highlights of this?
Well, Mukesh Ambani today has fulfilled his promise made to shareholders at the 42nd AGM that they will go ahead and make Reliance Industries net debt free. With the PIF investment coming in from Saudi Arabia, that transaction actually fulfills that promise, and by raising 1.15 lakh crore by the way of global investors, private equity companies, Facebook put together, along with 53,000 crore of rights issue, they have gone ahead and raised 1.68 lakh crore in a matter of weeks, completely changing the complexion, the way Reliance Industries is being looked at by global investors, and our Indian markets too are saluting that transaction which have happened by taking the stock at fresh lifetime high, almost crossing the $132 billion mark for the company, highest valued Indian company. It's a landmark deal and also a win for the country. The way FDI is coming in, FII investment into one company is coming in, it's a landmark transaction for sure. Analysts say that this is likely to propel the company valuation in a different kind of a league. It will be seen less as a oil conglomerate, more of a technology behemoth, that the way they are integrating their telecom technology as well as retail all into one. The offering which is getting created is similar to what America Online AOL did in US, what Tencent and Alibaba did in China. And this is a very landmark transaction and a milestone for the company, and clearly positive for the shareholders of Reliance Industries back home in India.
Thank you, Ajay, for taking us through that details. And remember, Reliance Industries, India's first Indian company to cross the $150 billion market cap by market capitalization as well. Let's shift focus now to the pharma space and talking about Glenmark. Glenmark's COVID drug gets nod for restricted use. So which is this drug and what does it do? How does it work? I'm joined by my colleague Pankaj on the phone line. Good morning, Pankaj. Take us through this. It's a big one for Glenmark, is it?
Right. When we just talk about the Glenmark approval which is coming, it's an emergency sort of approval which is given by Indian authorities to go ahead and make Favipiravir used for COVID-19 treatment. Now, when we talk about that, this came in on Friday post-market hours, and Indian drug makers have allowed Glenmark to sell the oral antiviral drug Favipiravir. This is for treating mild to maybe even moderate COVID-19 patients in the country. Remember, this is a drug which is being used or being under trial under various countries, for COVID-19 treatment. Japan major firm Fujifilm holding corporation that actually makes Favipiravir under the brand Allegiance said that this leads to a potential treatment of COVID-19, and this may drag on until July. So before that, maybe trial details may not be available. Drug makers across the world have been rushing across for treatment, vaccine, anything which is possible that can increase. And under that front, this has been given one of the approvals. Glenmark plans to sell FabiFlu, which was granted on the basis of evaluation of data, the company said in a statement, to stock exchanges after the approval was received.
All right, thank you, Pankaj, for getting us that details of that particular new development coming in for Glenmark Pharma. Let's shift focus now, and I'm on to the page 3 of Economic Times, and this is the story that I am going to talk about. It's about the committee set up by Home Ministry, Central Panel for cap on the COVID treatment in Delhi private hospitals. Suggestions to cut the rates from currently 24,000 to 25,000 to 8,000 to 18,000 per day. Also, a committee set up by the Union Home Ministry has recommended slashing the charges for COVID-19 treatment in Delhi's private hospitals by as much as 2/3. It has recommended 8,000 to 18,000 per day, including medicines and personal protective equipment, compared with the current rate that is ranging from 24,000 to 54,000 rupees. The rates can be at around 13,000 to 15,000 a day for an ICU isolation bed without ventilator support, and 15,000 to 18,000 with a ventilator. So this is what the recommendation is coming in from the central panel to cap the COVID-19 treatment costs in Delhi private hospitals. But let's shift focus and let's talk some more about the healthcare sector and what's happening there. And there is a story that's there on the page 5 of Economic Times. Give me a moment while I flip the page for you. And this is the story that I'm going to talk about, and here you go. The government may allow the export of PPE suits as local production has rises. With production of over 4 lakh PPE suits a day, India has become the second largest manufacturer, as per government officials. So, Bureau of Indian Standards has come out with a standard for coveralls. Nagpur cluster making 10,000 to 12,000 PPE kits in a day. And Punjab has 128 approved manufacturers with daily capacity of 5.2 lakh overalls a day. So Ministry has ensured that only certified players across the entire supply chain are allowed to supply body overalls to the government. So for now, what government is planning to do, and this is as per government official, that India has become the second largest manufacturer of the PPE body overalls within a short time span, and we have enough stock. Hence, we are considering allowing manufacturers to start exports of the PPE overalls. So this is another move that is coming in, that the government is planning to do, that they may export PPE suits as a local production has risen. And this is all as per government officials. Let's shift focus now to a banking space and a cooperative bank rather that had been focused over a year, and that is PMC or Punjab Maharashtra Cooperative Bank. As we all know, the RBI has raised the withdrawal limit to 1 lakh rupees. To get more details on this, I'm joined by my colleague Utkarsh. Utkarsh, good morning. Take us through the details of what the RBI has done with regards to PMC Bank.
Exactly. So the Reserve Bank of India has raised the withdrawal limit of Punjab and Maharashtra Cooperative Bank to 1 lakh from 50,000 while extending the moratorium or restrictions imposed on the bank for another 6 months. Now, the restrictions which were earlier imposed till June 23rd will now be applicable until December 22, 2020. Now, what the bank said is that after a review of the liquidity position and its ability to pay the depositors and to help depositors mitigate the difficulties faced during the COVID-19, it has decided to raise the withdrawal limit to 1 lakh per depositor. Now, with this relaxation, what will happen is that over 84% of banks' depositors will be able to withdraw their account balance. What RBI says is that the Reserve Bank has been engaging with the stakeholders to explore the possibility of resolution of the bank. However, the process has been affected due to lockdown on account of COVID-19 and the uncertainty around the pandemic. Further, the extent of negative net worth of the bank and the legal processes involved in the recovery also pose challenges. Nevertheless, a consultation with various stakeholders, it is considered necessary to extend the directions of a further period of 6 months of a moratorium, and again, the withdrawal is increased to 1 lakh. So that comes as a big relief to all the account holders of PMC Bank. As I said earlier, the limit of 50,000. It's an increase of almost 50,000 from that. And now, as the RBI said, almost 84% people of the depositors can withdraw their money from the bank.
Thank you, Utkarsh, for getting us the details of what's latest in PMC Bank and the development coming in that particular front. Let's shift focus now to a story that's there on page 7 of the Economic Times. This is the story that we are going to talk about, that government clears all debts for the big, largest ever LIC IPO. For more details on that, I'm joined by my colleague Vivek, who will take us through the details. Vivek, good morning. All debts cleared for LIC IPO, looks like it.
Well, it's going to be a very, very interesting IPO. India's most likely the largest IPO that the country will ever see. One of the most highly valued companies, LIC, that is Life Insurance Corporation of India, is most likely going to be listed in the capital markets. So now the Department of Public Asset Management has gone ahead and invited tenders for the management of the IPO process, and now they've kept the date as well. July 13th is the last date for when the request for proposal can be sent, and the DEPOM will open the bids on July 14th. It will be interesting to see what kind of bids come in this uncertain environment and what exactly the government can do in terms of garnering capital. Now remember, an independent valuation expert, RSBA, had gone and actually value realized at close to 9.9 lakh crore. We are still awaiting details as to how much the government will offload. Now what will be the total size? It's going to be a very interesting and a game-changing IPO as far as the entire insurance sector is concerned, and will be how much the government can actually gather from this particular significant divestment.
Thank you, Vivek, for that development. Let's shift focus now and let's talk about a story that's there on the page 15 of Times of India, and that is Supreme Court on Friday disapproved of Franklin Templeton's April 23rd announcement to wind up 6 debt funds, which spooked the lakhs of investors. But the asset management company assured the Supreme Court that all investors will get back their money. So this is a big development coming in on that particular front. That story is there on Times of India, page 15. Let's shift focus now and let's talk about the Finance Minister. She spoke yesterday, and Finance Minister NIRMALA SITHARAMAN said on Friday that the government was closely monitoring the execution of relief measures that were announced to counter economic impact of COVID-19 at the ground, so that all benefits, especially transmission of repo rates cuts, ultimately reach the consumer. So definitely she's ensured she will ensure banks pass on the rate cut benefits to consumers. So that is a big headline coming in. The Finance Minister assuring all of us on that front. Another story that's there on the Economic Times page 10, and this is the one that I'm talking about, that US is actually keen to restore India's GSP status. India and the United States are working on a limited trade deal that may restore the generalized system of preferences or GSP benefits, but will exclude Washington's move to probe India's Google tax. The United States may be keen on a deal ahead of elections there, as talks with China have not made any headway. So that's another big headline coming in. The US is keen to restore the GSP benefits as trade talks with India begins. And that was a roundup of all the top stories that's there on the Economic Times as well as the Times of India. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of the newspaper show. Thank you for watching.